Well, welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. My name is Bob Bianchi. I'm going to be with you here till 3 o'clock. Guys, we have an amazing show. Question for our chatters in that chat room, because I'm always in there listening to you because you're our jury. Here's the question. What does Jeffrey Epstein, attorney Alan Dershowitz, the Smollett, and the Fox case that keeps the gift that keeps on giving, as well as the Michigan State University president that is at a hearing as to whether or not the case is going to go forward for trial regarding the Larry Nassar case, as well as the McStay family murder case, all have in common? The Law and Crime Network on this show is going to be covering it. But I cannot properly cover all those subject matters, if I did not have one of my besties, hashtag 4041, the great, the inimitable, the amazing, the Gene Rossi War Room star, our Law and Crime analyst, Gene Rossi. Good afternoon, Gene.
I'm sorry. I'm speechless.
Is it too much energy? It's past the morning, so we've had our coffee. We're ready to go into the energy mode.
Oh, my God. Good afternoon. I'm sorry. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Hey, Gene, man, nobody does it like the Law and Crime Network. We have all of this great workers. We have even some new people on staff that I personally know are amazing. Welcome, Stephanie, and so many other people in the back room that are helping us out. In fact, Gene, as you know, this Epstein Dershowitz case, in case you guys don't know the developments with regard to that, this is the guy who's accused of being a serial predator, and people have accused attorney Alan Dershowitz from Harvard University School of Law, emeritus professor, that he has been involved. You see a picture of Epstein there right now. You see a picture of Dershowitz. But did you know, Gene, that Alan Dershowitz gave an interview to the Law and Crime Network before this new shoe dropped with respect to a complaint filed against him for defamation? Let's take a look.
Wow.
The goal of going after me was to get a lot of money from Leslie Wexner, who was accused of the same thing. They accused me publicly, and then they accused Wexner privately in an attempt to get some money from him. But, and the best friend told me that Virginia Roberts told her she was, quote, she felt pressured to include me, even though she had never previously mentioned me as one of the people with whom she allegedly had relations. So my case is completely closed over. I've been completely cleared. I had nothing to do with it, and never met the woman. And this is a woman who should be seriously punished for having submitted false information and a false affidavit.
Wow, Gene, this is blockbuster, because now one of the girls who claims that she was underage and disputes Alan Dershowitz's claim has filed a complaint in court that is very detailed and very specific. But let's make it very clear. Alan Dershowitz, a very well-regarded and high-respected figure in the legal community, says he has proof that he not only was not there, but that she's lying. But then, an attorney files a complaint, Gene. Typically speaking, you don't file a frivolous complaint against an authority figure like that unless you believe you have some evidence that can prove your case. What are you thinking, Gene?
Well, I got it. I did civil work. You do civil work. You can't file a civil lawsuit if you don't have a good faith basis after due diligence that what your client says has merit. And I got to tell you, if she has any corroboration, Bob, whether it's a text message, email, even another witness who was at or near the event she allegedly had this relationship or encounter with Professor Dershowitz, you're going to see a jury trial.
Yeah, Gene, one of the things that's interesting to me, and to make clear about this Epstein character, we talk about Smollett, which we're going to get into, but this guy right here was accused of a massive conspiracy, if you will, to groom and use underage girls. This was the allegation. It was handled by the U.S. Attorney's Office, and just so our audience knows, it got a lot of blowback because he got another, what we are now affectionately referring to as the Smollett deal, the kiss. We have clients that have done far less, allegations that are far less, to go to jail for far less. I don't know. What are your thoughts about the whole Epstein case and the way it was handled by the U.S. attorneys that are now coming under incredible scrutiny for the deal they offered?
Well, because it's Lent, I've cut down on my profanities by probably 50%. And the reason this gets me exercised, Bob, is it does involve the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I can tell you right now, I don't know what those prosecutors were smoking. I don't know what bong they were inhaling, but they violated the Federal Victims' Rights Act. And what they did to those victims in giving Epstein a sweetheart deal and a non-prosecution agreement or whatever they gave him, that was absolutely morally reprehensible.
You know, Gene,
and the more I think about it, I get exercise. It's almost like what the prosecutor Fox did in Cook County.
Okay, well, Gene, we talked last week about Mueller, and I had posited to you the idea that when prosecutors have wide latitude and discretion, it is very important to ensure that they're doing it to the best that we humanly can with all of our frailties based on law and facts alone and consistency, what we call in the law parity. I know as the boss, that's what I strive for, to make similar cases are treated similarly. More aggressive cases and victim cases are more aggressive. And when we can rehabilitate, we rehabilitate. But when you take a look at either the Mueller investigation, the Smollett case, and or this particular case with Epstein, what concerns me, I'll put Mueller aside right now because we're waiting for that report, we'll see, is the infusion of politics and politically connected people that are getting these sweetheart deals, would show us that it is important that we challenge prosecutorial sources to make sure they're doing things based on the rule of law, not on the rule of personal gain and political advantage. Thoughts?
Yes, if that defendant was named Jeffrey Smith instead of Jeffrey Epstein, he would have gotten in federal court in Alexandria, Virginia, because I supervise these type of cases. He would have got at least, Bob, 20 to 30 years in prison. It is a travesty that this filthy rich man, who was an absolute admitted predator, got, what did he get, 14 months in state prison?
Months, Gene, and people, like I
14
said,
months.
who have done far less in state and federal court are going to jail. This, I've always said, Gene Rossi, I'm glad these cases are actually happening, because I've always said the epidemic in the criminal justice system is the abuse of prosecutorial discretion. Prosecutors who are using it for their advantage as opposed to what the right thing to do is by the rule of law. And it's an epidemic throughout this country. And I believe in prosecutorial discretion. It's an important tool to make sure you achieve justice. For example, the Jussie Smollett case. Now, I know me and my girl, Linda Kenny Bodden, are having a little bit of a Twitter battle back and forth with regard to this because we have updates in this case. And to me, this moves the needle a little bit about what went on here, Gene. We have text messages that were secured as a result of a FOIA request. I believe that we're going to see some of them on the screen shortly. But essentially, what Kim Fox is, I'm going to give you two that are important, and those texts are on the screen right now. The pedophile, here's one of them. Pedophile with 4 victims, 10 counts. Washed up celeb who lied to cops, 16. On a case eligible for deferred prosecution, I think it's indicative of something we should be looking at generally. Just because we can charge doesn't mean we should. Now, I want to go to that text first, Gene, because it is wrought with so much prosecutorial error, it's almost mind-boggling to me. But it shows one thing. I'm going to move my needle off a corrupt person looking to do her own bidding and well-being to just a complete incompetent who has no idea of what the criminal justice system is before. Let's start with the last part of that text first. If a deferred disposition is what you think it's appropriate, let's explain to the audience what that is. That's where prosecutors, I had that tool as the boss of an agency, where I can put a first-time offender on a low-level offense, a non-quote-unquote victim crime, into a program where if they're nicey nice and they pay their fines and they don't get into trouble again, then the case ultimately is dismissed against them. That is, in fact, an appropriate resolution of a case. So my first question, Gene Rossi, when you look at this text is, if in fact that's true, your office investigated, Ms. Fox, this case, your office chose to put this case into the grand jury, your office is the one who asked the grand jurors to secure the 16 counts, and then After all that, you make a decision to dismiss the case, not give a deferred prosecution. Now, I think deferred prosecution in a case where somebody ratchets up race relations, lies to the police on multiple occasions is too light an offense, but we can argue that, Gene. But why didn't he get that deferred disposition? He got less than that.
Well, here's the thing, Bob. Assuming for the sake of argument that Jesse Smollett was entitled to a deferred prosecution, that comes before any indictment. That's number one. And number two, hey, dude, if I'm going to give you a deferred, I want you to sign a statement of facts that is fulsome, that is detailed, and where you fall on the sword and you admit that you were wrong.
Right.
And I want you to sign that under oath.
And Gene, let's talk, and here's where it's unfortunate. Yeah. I know Linda Kenny Bottom's going to be all over me. We were going to have a face-off today, but we couldn't make it work out.
You know where she is? You know where she is? She's home making polenta for me.
Well, she better be making it for me too. Hey, she's my girl. I love her. I love her. But the number of charges in an indictment has nothing to do with the resolution of the case. It's apples and oranges. For example, if somebody commits repeated burglaries or repeated thefts, you go into the grand jury and you get multiple count indictments. The fact that you get that doesn't mean it's not a low-level offense. Doesn't mean that it can't be worked out for something like a slap on the wrist, like a deferred disposition or something where no jail time is warranted. For example, if you're going to use the number of charges to justify, things, whether they're right or wrong, a murder charge is only one charge. Does that mean you can't charge more for that usually in a murder case? The number of charges filed has nothing to do with the gravity of the offense and the manner in which the case resolves itself. Yet Kim Foxx seems to think, well, we went in there and asked for 16 counts, we got 16 counts, and people who commit rape on children get less counts. Yeah, but they get a lot more time.
Well, you know what? The thing that upsets me, if it is true, about Kim Foxx, F-O-X-X, is that if she recused herself, Bob, and then she still had her fingers in the cookie jar and was the woman behind the curtain, that is unethical, and she should be referred to bar counsel.
I agree with that. In fact,
yeah.
in an unprecedented move, the National Association of District Attorneys, of which I'm sure me and you at one point have always been involved with, actually rebuked her that if you're recusing yourself, your office should, because let's be honest, your underlings take your position. Gene, real quick though, this idea that a deferred disposition is even appropriate in the first place, to me, scuttles the gravity of the case that is Jesse Smollett doing this on multiple occasions, lying to multiple police officers, ratcheting up racial tension. When I was a prosecutor, I was allowed to deny a deferred disposition because of the societal interest that's at play here. And add to that she doesn't even tell the police before she does that. And add to that she allows the record to be sealed. And I say, these text messages show even more. This stinks to high heaven. You got the last word.
This was not a case appropriate for deferred prosecution. What Jesse Smollett did, and there's no dispute that he did this, he paid two guys to play the race card, to play the gay card, to play the Make America Great card. For what reason? So that he could get a better contract for his role on Empire. Greed, greed, greed.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gene. Listen, whether it is sheer incompetence, sheer misunderstanding of the criminal justice system, the fact is in her office, people are going to jail for less. Jesse Smollett got the, as I like to call it, kiss deal, and will be forever known when we go around. I just did it the other day in a case that I have. Hey, can you give my guy a Smollett deal? Unfortunately, the little guy oftentimes doesn't get that kind of break. Guys, you could tell I'm getting worked up. I'm shiny. I'm sweating. I'm ready to hit it with Gene Rossi. We got so much more. If you haven't yet, get into that chat room. I'd love to hear what you have to say about Epstein, Smollett, and we got a lot more. We're going to do some business. We'll be right back.